Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Those Were the Days! That's right, this week I'm settling into the most comfortable chair in the family room to wax poetic about days gone by and complain about the kids today. But I couldn't do it without my charming, sweet, and empathetic family, starting with Audie Norman.
You know, if we've learned anything on this podcast, it's that there is precedence in all of TV, marking the times a program aired. This week, we discovered how one certain word can easily just be thrown out and used, and very luckily by a person who can use it. I prefer our more modern style of verbiage on TV these days, especially on good old-fashioned network TV. Yes, the curse words are creeping in more and more, but come on, tell me it's not more creative and fun to find substitutions in that work. Like stubbing your toe and it just comes out, dang it. Or talking about all this bull honky. Being surprised and shouting, holy mother forking shirt balls. Or you realize you had the same thought as someone else and yell, shut the front door. Then there's my personal all-time catch-all favorite, biscuits.
And we also have TVsTravis.
I'm sorry, I got lost. I'm just looking for the Elks Lodge.
And Amy Frost.
I think what we all learned this week is that Freevee doesn't censor any of their programming.
That's right. And if you're wondering what kind of show we would watch that would deserve such intros, we watched All in the Family, a show that I used to watch all the time as a kid, like with all the other 1970s television that I watched. And I got an education along the way, as clearly we did from the looks of it. We all learned new words today that were clearly just thrown around on the internet. And so I watched this with Stephanie, and I didn't pre-screen the episode I was going to watch, which might be obvious to you after watching it. I just read the topic and thought, neat, sounds great.
Here's the thing, though, and we'll get into it. But aside from some dated language, I think the rest of it was fine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, everything else is fine. There's some dated language.
Yeah, there's definitely some dated language. And I feel like our listeners who, if you've never watched the show and you can't tell, we're four people of the same color talking about a show where they definitely talked about people of different colors coming together. I just want to make sure it's clear to the audience that we don't have a person of color representing that side of the discussion. Maybe what you would consider from the Jefferson side of the angle. So just, bear with us. We got what we got, and we're going to go with it. But that's something I felt like we maybe should mention, considering some of the subject matter of this show. I did pick this show because All in the Family does its best work when it's putting Archie in the places where he can wreak the most havoc or otherwise look the dumbest and look the most out of place and be the biggest buffoon in the room to the viewer. So there were a handful of episodes that popped up that I was like, let me try that one. I went down the list a little bit. We go to IMDb to try to find the good ones. And I found this one, which featured not only a Jeffersons cameo, and a main line of the story, not even really a cameo. I mean, they were families on this show, but Lionel was a featured character in the dang title, Lionel's Engagement. I love Lionel, but anyway, we're gonna get into why I love Lionel. But first, I want to get some history on your relationship, if any, with All in the Family, and we'll just start the way we began the whole show. We'll start with Audie.
Okay. I know this show existed as a person who grew up in Atlanta, and we had TBS and all the reruns of this show, among many others, playing all the freaking time. I know I've seen it before. I don't think I've ever purposely sat down and watched it before. Like, I think this is my first time actually watching and paying attention to an episode,
All
and it
right.
was hilarious.
Great. How about you, Travis?
I remember watching All in the Family. Growing up, I knew Carol O'Connor more from In the Heat of the Night than I did
Ooh.
from All in the Family. It just, for whatever reason, reruns of that were playing more often on channels for me. But I definitely remember this show because I still think of Rob Reiner as Meathead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what else he does. That's the first name that pops into my head is it's Meathead. And no, I do remember the show, and I remember it being really funny. And as a kid, not totally getting what was going on, but revisiting it a little bit when I was older, and be like, "Wow, they really went for it with this." But this was really fun to go back and check out again.
Yeah, yeah. And Rob Reiner showed us all up by actually being a fantastic director throughout his career.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So definitely not just a meathead. All right,
Yeah.
Amy, how about you?
I don't have any memory of watching this show, but the opening is like well and truly ingrained in my
Oh, yeah.
mind. Like because I mean that's the funny thing about the opening, right? Is
Mhm.
it's good but bad but good but bad but good.
Yeah.
And it is
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
like I would know it anywhere. And so like clearly I have seen something, but I have no
Yes.
memory.
Yeah. And that theme, I mean, you look at something like Family Guy, even the intro to Family Guy is Peter and
Mhm.
Lois at the piano. It's a
Mhm.
total play on what they did here. So, I mean, it was inspiring. And I found out in researching the show that intro was recorded 6 times. They did a different
Wow.
recording every season of
Oh,
Carol
wow.
O'Connor and Gene Stapleton. And Gene Stapleton's actually playing that piano in the theater, and they recorded them doing it, and that's how it came across. So one season you have Archie smiling at Edith and Edith smiling at him. One season he's putting the cigar in his mouth, which was the season we got. Another season she lays her head on his shoulder. So it was kind of like this evolution, which I thought was super interesting as they get further into the series and understand more of the dynamic between those two, which is really more of a throwback to like honeymooner style husband wife interaction. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
I don't think Archie never threw fists or threatened to that I recall, but he definitely called her a dingbat about 1,000,000 times.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which was always pretty hilarious because he was not the sharpest spoon in the drawer either. You know what I mean? But speaking of that theme, I did capture this little ditty because it is the namesake of our show.
Those were the days.
Gotta love it.
When I
Because
was
Gene,
when
oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
posting on the socials on Instagram and did a reel of it, I could find that actual tune. Like, not
Oh,
some
yeah.
cover. It was actually them singing it.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. What's wild to me is I went and did a little bit of research on Carol O'Connor and Gene Stapleton later, when they were older and done with the show. They don't sound anything like Archie and Edith. Like Gene Stapleton sounds nothing like Edith.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
her voice, her tone has changed. Her accent obviously was always embellished, but gone, you know? I mean, she's a classically trained stage actress, and Carol O'Connor's the same way. He doesn't sound like Archie at all. Like he just loses all of it. So it was amazing they were able to trick us so convincingly for so long. It kind of blew my mind. But anyway, when I drive this car, I like to go down kind of the history of the show before we dive into the episode. So that's what I figured we'd do. I got a handful of pretty neat facts about the show, starting with All in the Family, developed by Norman Lear, was actually based on a British sitcom called Till Death Us Do Part, which created by a guy named Johnny Spate. Spite? I don't know. It's British. The archetypes in both of these versions, they were all largely similar. You had the patriarch, who was like your greatest generation. This is the way things are done. This is the way it should always be done. This is my history, and all the kids today are losing it and doing all kinds of weird stuff and growing their hair and fingernails or whatever they could complain about. That was the whole jam, is parents don't understand their children. At the root of this show, that's what you got. We don't understand society. It's all getting weird. And if I could argue you could remake this show today with very similar
Oh,
themes.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You could do just about the same thing today and it would still resonate because since human beings started procreating, the kids have been a mess. And they've caused more trouble. Since the dawn of time, every generation has begat a generation that's a problem.
It's funny, off the top of my head, I think of that's Tim Allen's career on television.
Yeah.
Trying to
Yeah.
recreate this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the buffoon with everything around you is
Uh-huh.
not what you want it to be. So I thought that was cool. The show itself ran from January 12th, 1971 to April 8th, 1979. So really good 8-year run. And then Gene Stapleton left the show, to which a lot of people felt like it should have ended after Gene Stapleton left. I mean, Edith gone, and the way Edith
Right.
went was kind of like, it's real sad. But they turned it into Archie Bunker's place, and I think they cast a kid to kind of come in with Archie and be the foil to his nonsense. And by kid, I mean like small child. I don't remember a lot about it, but it ran for another 4 years that way and did well then too. So it clearly had some legs. I think just if looking back, Archie Bunker's place is not quite as revered for sure as the original run of All in the Family. But as we've said, it did star Carol O'Connor as Archie, Gene Stapleton as Edith, Sally Struthers as Gloria, and Rob Reiner as Mike. Raise your hand, those in the room and the audience. If Sally Struthers, if your first introduction to Sally Struthers was that college on TV where it said TV VCR repair, all right.
Yep.
Okay. We do. That was where I knew her from. I didn't know she was on TV. She just listed out all those cool jobs you could get.
Refrigerator repair.
Yes, refrigerator repair, TV VCR repair, computer stuff. Whatever
get your
happened to
degree.
Automotive, or get your GED.
Yeah, exactly. That was her for me. And then much later, Gilmore Girls, where Sally Struthers was on as Babette. Babette? She was Babette, right? Okay. I was like, am I getting that right? Couldn't remember if that was the dance teacher lady or her. But she was great, always in everybody's business. I love Sally Struthers. And I love Rob Reiner, like we already mentioned. He was fantastic in the show as Mike.
And such a good foil to Archie. Just a
So
perfect.
Mhm.
And right in this episode where he's like, I'll deliver the bad news, but
Love
Archie's
it.
not going to be happy. He never is
He
with me.
never is.
Yeah.
So good.
Early on, I mean, Mike and Archie's relationship, that was the thing in the show because he would always use racial Polish slurs at Mike because Mike is Polish in the show. And that was always an interesting dynamic. And he also was the guy, Gloria's a feminist and Archie's like, that's wrong. And, Mike is this guy who's just like, we do what we want, live free, all this stuff. And Archie's like, there are rules. Yeah. The dynamic they created by just giving them the excuse to live in the house with them just created so much chaos in the early episodes. So eventually they branched out and invited the Jeffersons to move in across the street and become part of what we see here. But there's a handful of wild topics covered on All in the Family, and I got a list. Basically, if you could name a controversy that exists in the United States, they went after it. I've got racism, anti-Semitism, infidelity, homosexuality, women's liberation, rape, religion, miscarriages, abortion, breast cancer, the Vietnam War, menopause, and impotence. So I went ahead and used all those as hashtags for all of our socials.
Good, excellent.
Yeah, just to make sure I got it in there.
Yeah.
The fun part is that a decade later, they did all of those on the Golden Girls also.
Right.
I love these sitcoms that are like, no, we're just gonna take all of this heavy stuff and we're just gonna talk about it.
But
because
that
we
was
can.
Yeah.
like that was Norman Lear. Norman Lear
yeah.
was all about doing that. So that was his thing, and this started it. And then I don't know if this started it, but this was one that he definitely, because that guy, talk about just TV royalty, like the shows that he was a part of, that he helped create, this and Sanford and Son,
Oh, yeah.
and then all of the spin-offs. I mean, All in the Family spun off Maude and the Jeffersons. Maude spun off Good Times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that alone. I mean, when your spin-off show has more episodes than the show that it came from, and that one is considered one of the top like 5 shows
Mhm.
ever made. That's pretty
Mhm.
impressive.
Yeah, he is definitely TV royalty. He's still around too, right? Isn't he still kicking around? He
No,
hasn't
he passed away. He passed
Oh,
away in
last year.
December.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last year.
Oh.
Okay.
101 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Some of
But he
these
was
Hollywood
working
stars.
all the way up until that day, though.
That's
Mhm.
why he lived to be 101. I swear, Dick Van Dyke still works and he's 98.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
Mel Brooks is still kicking. He's 90 something. I mean, I think they
Mhm.
just never stop writing, and that's something they can do no matter
think if
how
you
old they
love-
get.
If you love living, then
Yeah.
you're gonna keep
Yeah.
doing it.
If I had buckets of money and could just write for
Yeah.
fun, I'd go ahead and live. Why not? You know, what's stopping me? So yeah, he was huge. You're right about TV royalty. They did get a lot of accolades during the run and after. They topped the Nielsen ratings from 1971 to 76. Sammy's visit, which is one of the episodes I was thinking about doing, is when Sammy Davis Jr. visits the show.
Yeah.
And leads to a hilarious moment where Sammy Davis kisses Archie on the cheek, and they just freeze on that for a good 10 seconds while Archie makes his Archie face of like what just happened, which is a wild story in itself. We didn't cover that episode, but Sammy Davis and Carol O'Connor were friends. And I guess Sammy pitched that to Carol O'Connor in a taxi, either one way or the other, to get him on the show, and that's how they came up with that whole deal.
Nice.
And that episode itself was ranked 13 on TV Guide's 100 greatest episodes of all time. 13, pretty dang high out of 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's ranked. The show itself is ranked number 4 in TV Guide's greatest TV shows. In 2013, the Writers Guild of America ranked it as the 4th best written TV series ever. And that's in 2013, like after Breaking Bad had already come out and done a lot. Like that's a lot. Prestige TV came along in the 2000s, and this still ranked up there as the 4th. 2023, Variety ranked the show as number 16 out of 100 greatest TV shows. Anybody want to take a guess at what the number 1 was? I did this with some friends earlier.
Oh, number 1
Out of all
greatest
TV shows, 2023. Yeah, I'm talking HBO shows, AMC shows, the whole jam. What's number 1?
I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna be wrong, but I'm gonna guess MASH.
Good guess. Amy, Audie.
Mm.
Oh, Master Diver says Baywatch. Good guess. Good guess. Solid choice.
Yes.
And
Wow,
I can.
I don't know. I can think of a lot of options, but I'm like, there's
Uh-huh.
no way. I
Yeah.
don't know.
All right, that's fair. I know that we have podcast listeners in their car right now screaming
Just
at
yelling.
the
Then we know
Oh,
we've done it right.
Striker Droid says, "I love Lucy."
That was
Strike-
gonna be my. That was gonna be my.
That was going to be your guess.
Yeah.
That would have been correct, Amy. I Love Lucy.
Ah,
The
No.
number 1 greatest, according to Variety, the number 1 best TV show
Yeah.
ever. MASH didn't come into. I think MASH was 24. Believe it
Wow.
or not. Yeah. Cheers was 11. Mad Men was number 2.
Mad Men is so
Dang.
good.
Yeah, Mad Men. Clearly an acquired taste because I only watched like 4 or 5 episodes. I couldn't get into it, so maybe I should have stuck around. But yeah, it's a big deal. So, and I also found another neat tidbit that I really like. This was cool. All in the Family was the first major American series to be videotaped in front of a live studio audience with a multi-camera shoot. They didn't use any film. Up to that point, most shows have been filmed using a single camera with a laugh track added in later from the audience laughter. But throughout the show's run, Norm and Lear actually took a lot of pride that there was no canned laughter on this show at all, ever.
Nice.
Every single joke came from the audience on the set at the time. Later on, I think they did do some showings of the videotapes to a closed room of audience members who would then be able to laugh. And they prefaced that Carol O'Connor would say, like, the show was performed or seen by a live audience during it from tape or something. He used a phrase that basically
Sure.
alluded to they watched a video of it and laughed, and we caught their laughter. But
'Cause
yeah,
it's hard. It's hard when you're recording, right? Because like you do takes over and over and over again, and
Yeah.
at some point it stops being funny.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So they nailed it. They did a great job.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's it for facts and stuff about the show. But now we can get into the episode. Season 4, episode 20, Lionel's Engagement. And the show opens with Louise Jefferson hanging out in the living room, being a yarn. What do you call those, Amy, when you hold your hands out and wrap the
I don't
yarn?
know. I don't knit, so I don't know
Yeah.
what it's called. But like you usually you can use like a wood one that spins.
Yeah. So Edith's got a ball of yarn and she's wrapping the yarn around Louise's hands to get a
I wanna
yarn thing.
Yeah, I want to take a quick second though, just to point out we found a hobby that Amy doesn't do.
I'm not good at it. I mean, I've tried. Like, it's not one that I haven't tried. I just
Okay.
generally don't because I'm
Okay.
not good at it.
That's very different. I get it.
I did forget to just award Striker Droid with internet points for getting that I Love Lucy thing right. So congratulations, Striker Droid. You have 30 internet points. Don't spend them all in one place. So they're talking about Lionel's engagement party, and Louise wants to invite the family. However, Louise makes the fatal mistake in my mind of being like, Edith, you can come, and Gloria and Mike can come, but Archie can't come. Like, I don't know where a person could come up with the idea that I could just make them leave the husband out. But Edith seems receptive to the idea because she knows.
She gets it. She's
Yeah.
like, no, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't
Oh,
do
no,
that.
there's going to be a lot of black people in that room. I don't blame you.
I don't, yeah,
That
I
real
know.
vibe.
Exactly.
And that is part of what made this show like took it from good to great was the character's awareness of Archie outside,
Yeah.
like not just that Archie is, kind of dumb and bigoted and all of that kind of stuff, but Edith knowing that and leaning into it while still,
And
caring
nobody's
about
like
him and loving
okay
him.
with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's just like,
They're not okay
well,
with it,
he's
but they
gonna do
also
something
know
dumb,
it.
and plus, I mean, it's the kid's engagement party. Like, you don't want to put that on them.
Yeah, you don't want
Like,
any
they don't get
shenanigans
that.
going off. And they know George doesn't get along with Archie anyway. So it's like, let's just keep all this, keep them out. But just about that time, Archie walks in and says, Edith, you're never going to know what happened to me on the way home. And Edith says, well, you ran into Lionel and he invited you to the engagement party or some such. Or no, we
You
just
ran
ran
it
into
'cause he was
Lionel. Yeah.
Lionel and his fiance, because they're
That's
coming
right.
over.
Yeah, because they were
Yeah.
coming over. And Archie does the face,
So
cannot believe when he's upset.
Wait,
Yeah, go ahead.
can we back up a second?
Yeah,
'Cause
please.
One of the jokes that just absolutely got me when they're talking about, learning about each other before getting married and everything. It's talking about Edith was like, it was a year before I learned he was ticklish. One other place I learned after we were married. And
Just
she
hung in
looks
the
at it.
air.
That look is so
Just
good.
hung in the air. It's like the soles of his feet.
It was so good how long it hung in the air and just let
Uh-huh.
you think. I loved it so much.
Oh, it was great.
It was great. Yeah, but so Archie comes in. He has that face, and one of the things that's I was trying to figure out, like, why is it so funny? His performance is in his eyes, just like the way he hangs his eyes when Edith says something to him. I don't know that another actor that didn't have his face could pull it off quite the same. Like Carol O'Connor's just got it. He just naturally fits into that. I can't believe you just said that to me. Look, that makes it so funny. Kind of along. I think about Family Feud and what's his name?
Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey's look when somebody says
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
stupid on Family Feud. It's the same idea, that mouth agape kind of weirdness. But Lionel walks in, and anyway, Lionel's one of my favorite characters on the Jeffersons and on All in the Family, but primarily All in the Family because he plays such a good foil to Archie. Because Archie will say something stupid like where you're going, you want to go, you need to make sure you're wearing shoes. And Lionel will be like, oh, yes, sir, we wear shoes. He just plays up
No.
Archie's nonsense, and he just leans into Archie being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he did that in this episode because they're talking about getting married. He says, Lionel, I hope you're going to follow through on get married. And he's like, oh, yeah, we're going to do that. Just gives it, like, lets Archie know, like, he screws with him so much. And the more you watch episodes with him in it, you'll just see those little jokes where Archie's trying to teach this young black man how to be a person. And Lionel's just like, whatever. So he leans in, and it makes it work so well for me. Where George fights back, Wheezy ignores, Lionel just gives it to him, just lets him
Because
have
Archie's
the win.
he's not a bad guy. Like there are plenty
Sure.
of people, especially at this time. There are plenty of people who are. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and he's
Yeah.
not a bad guy. He's just a product of his environment. And he can change.
Mhm.
Sure.
Maybe.
If he wants to, he guesses. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Archie is one of those people who you feel you could educate given enough time. He would be receptive to learning and understanding. And that's alluded to later in the episode. It's just like, I thought it all you did that. Because he just is so clueless. And you're like, okay. And I think they had to do that because if Archie was malicious with who he is, it wouldn't fly. The show never would have flied.
No.
But Archie's not malicious because he does, Wheezy's in his house. Lionel's like, he feels like a fatherly kinship to Lionel. He actually is competitive with George and they don't see space eye to eye, but he's never like outright nasty as much as he is just like, neighbor stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like your car wasn't clean. What are you doing? That kind of stuff. But anyway, I love that. Archie talking about the impending husband kind of cracked me up. What are you going to do with your impending husband? And then Lionel's fiance, who I did not write down her name because I'm that good of a note taker, gives out their plan of what they're going to do.
She was great.
Lynn Moody played Jenny.
Lynn Moody. Jenny. Okay.
Yeah.
Jenny was her name. Thank you, Travis. She lays out the whole plan is just eloquently as a human being could, while Archie is just like, okay. Because in Archie's mind, well, you're a wife now. Aren't you just going to be home and have babies? And she's like, oh, well, he's going to go to college. And when he gets done, I'm going to go to college. And then when I get done, we're going to have a career. It was a huge thing. And Archie turns around, looks at Lionel and goes, ain't she something? And that just tickled me to no end. And then, of course, Archie wanted to be invited. So he invites himself, to the engagement party. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
He assumes. Like, obviously.
Obviously.
If they're only inviting, family and a few close friends. Who could be closer? They're neighbors.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's he was like, of course I'm invited. I've been around Lionel since, I've practically raised him. And then he let out this zinger that I love so much.
You've only known Lionel 4 years.
But them were 4 very important years, Edith. Them were the 4 years when the boy is coming into his pubertyhood.
Pubertyhood. I love that so much. That made me laugh. Pubertyhood. It's perfect. It was a perfect Archieism. By the way, to this day, I refer to the toilet as a turlet at any chance I get because that's the way Archie always said it, and it just cracks me up. Why are you going to the turlet there? Just so great. So I love that. And then we get, I think that's about it for that scene. And then the next scene is Wheezy and George in the kitchen. George is not happy that Archie is coming.
This whole exchange was the best written thing in the entire episode.
It was
this, and then there's
so
there's some little things that pay off in the next scene.
Mhm.
Yes.
So good.
Yes. There's one particular joke in the next scene that absolutely slayed me. But just a quick, like Isabel Sanford. Holy crap.
Yeah.
She is so good. And because I do remember watching a fair bit of the Jeffersons. And I did not appreciate how funny she was back then. Like I just watched it because it was on. Man, she's good.
Yeah, her timing is awesome. The way she stares him down is great. And I mean, this is another example where if George was winning the battle, it wouldn't have been as fun. But she stands her ground and goes toe to toe with him, and it's like, okay, this is funny because no one wants to see somebody beat down all the time. You want to see them win, and Louise's she's like, no, you're not gonna eat this food. We're gonna go through this anyway. I didn't write down any of the jokes, but they were all great, and you should go watch the show.
Well, so because one of them was something about like you'll be eaten through a straw.
That was
yes.
Okay, the one I wrote down was like earlier. It's like George is like, "Who you telling to shut up?" And she's like, "Do you see anyone else in this room?"
And what I loved about it is George gets it. Like, he doesn't want to. He wants to be assertive and be the alpha male and run things, but he knows.
Yeah.
George
Oh, he knows.
George isn't dumb. He's going to push back, but he's not winning, and he
No.
kind of knows it already. It's just so good.
Well,
But
we
yeah,
do
I
meet
love that.
his.
You see anyone else in this room was perfect.
We do meet his mother later, and maybe we get an idea of why he is submissive after he tries to be the man he feels like he's supposed to be. But we don't get a lot of this in this episode. But George Jefferson, Sherman Hemsley, has a very particular walk when he's trying to assert dominance. The old George Jefferson strut. And we do see it when Wheezy leaves and he follows after her, but only a flash of it. Yeah. And we don't really see a lot of it the rest of the episode. But those arms behind, like letting him have it with his chest out. I love it. I've walked like that a million times through the house after laying down some sass. Not to no effect. But I'm doing my thing. Get out of my way. It's so great. And she leaves, and one of the jokes I wrote down here was he says, "Over my dead body," and she said, "That's one way." So good. I love them all so much. Watching this scene, it becomes clear why the Jeffersons became a show, like why they looked at it and said, "These people need their own TV show. This has got legs," because the chemistry was off the charts for them. So Gloria, next we go back over to the Bunker's residence, and Gloria and Mike show up when we get the Archies in the bathroom. You showed up at the perfect time. Oh, why? Is dinner ready? Oh, Archie's in the bathroom. And the face of just, what? Huh? We got, and Edith explains to them what's going on about the party. The toilet flushes because they're like,
it's great because it's that Lionel's getting married. And that's why he's in the bathroom.
Because I think he's throwing a tantrum over something. That's why he went in there. And then she says, "Well, Archie's going to be down and flush." You hear the toilet flush, and Mike says, "Well, we've got about 10 seconds." So you got to figure out what to do. So Mike decides, well, I'll tell him he's not invited because he already doesn't like me. It's not going to change anything if I tell him. So Mike goes to tell him how he's not, or hey, Archie, what's new? And he says, New York, New Jersey, whatever. And Carol O'Connor's self-satisfied little swagger when he tells that stupid joke just made me so happy.
Even back then, we had dad jokes.
Oh yeah, with this sitting down in his chair, and that chair is a big thing in a lot of episodes. Not this one in particular, but he always sits in his chair. Every dad's got the chair, you know what I mean? Yeah. So Mike tries to tell him you're not invited. He says that's ridiculous. Did you hear what the meathead just said to me? And then Louise comes in, and of course she's there to invite Archie. And it makes the joke, which Amy
to extend a formal invitation.
Yes.
From George.
Yeah, who said he would not eat solid food until Archie said yes.
There it was. That was a payoff.
That was the payoff.
Chef's kiss.
It really was. So it's confused everybody, but sure enough, Archie gets formally invited. But before Louise leaves, this is the best. Archie walks over there and grabs her by the arm and quietly just says, could you go ahead and extend a formal invitation to Edith and Mike and Gloria so they know they're invited? She just looks at him. Yeah, they never listened to me. And she just looks at him like, oh boy, okay, here we go. And he tells her, "You've got a very good heart." She just stares at him and then goes, "Yeah," and leaves the house because she's done with all this shenanigans. So we get to the party, and it's clearly a party. It's very much a group of black folks having a party for the engagement. And when Archie and Edith show up, they are going to look like the odd ones out. Let's put it that way. Got a whole big room. And the only other people there that are white are the servants that are like giving them, it's just such a good flip. Yeah.
It is.
And there's such a good joke, right?
There
at the
is, and I
start.
recorded it, and I've got it right here, and I'm going to play it
Nice.
right now.
Oh, I'm so glad to see you enjoying yourselves.
Ted just told me the funniest joke. It's about these two white dudes, see?
Not in front of the help.
And I laughed so hard because it's the best flip ever. And the audience clearly waits a beat because they're just like, huh? What? Oh, I get it. And it's just so good. It was such good timing. And right after that marvelous zinger, we get introduced to Mother Jefferson, who steals the show for me.
So good.
Oh, God.
Mother
So
Jefferson.
This was her first episode
Mm-hmm.
of the show. She was in one more episode of All in the Family, and then she was in the Jeffersons for 85 episodes. Zara Cully, and
Yeah.
she just steals it. She was so good.
Yeah,
she was
she
my
just-
favorite thing.
Yeah, she puts it in her suitcase and walks away with it. The whole thing. She's sitting in her chair, and Louise is asking her if she's having a good time, and she's got nothing but complaints. And my favorite line is, "No one is paying attention to me." My old son isn't even paying attention. He hasn't even spoke to me. And I could just see she's just so grumpy around Louise in particular because she has no respect for Louise, and Louise has no respect for her. So I guess this is how it's going to go. But they're in-laws, so you got to handle it, you know. And Lionel, I can't remember why I wrote this note, but I just wrote down Lionel is ridiculously charismatic. Like
Yeah.
everything he does, he's got charm just oozing off of him. And I didn't research it before, and I should have, like what he went on to do, because he's an incredibly talented actor that just, I mean, I would watch him do anything. The guy has it figured out. I know he was on the Jeffersons, you know, as Lionel recurring as the same role over again. Dude was just amazing. But Jenny and him are talking, and she realizes that Lionel hasn't told his parents the punchline of this entire episode. That her parents are a little
And
different.
as soon as she says, "You haven't told them, have you?" I was like, "Oh no, I know
Yep.
what's about to happen."
Yep. Same.
Yeah, she says about my parents. Oh, that they're werewolves. You know, Lionel is just he knows. And I thought about this. Like he says, there's some things you don't tell my father till it's too late, and it made me think of like baby names. Like you just don't let those out of the bag until it's until the baby's there and you've named it, and no one will ever insult your baby's name once it's been assigned and the baby exists in 3D space in your world. But before then, everybody's got an opinion.
You never have to know about the college roommate that they hated. to
Yeah,
have that name.
exactly.
You never have to hear that.
Yeah, they'll never tell you the story, and you'll be like, okay, good, this is great. I just kept it to myself. So it's a good tip. Sometimes you just wait. Don't tell anybody anything until they can't argue with you. So we get George walking up to his mother to see how she's doing, because she's at the buffet table, and she says everything is just lovely because she's going to tell her baby boy that it's great. She said, I'm not even bothered that the food is skimpy.
Well, at first, when she first says that, like, everything's great, his face is so good. He's like, what? No, what? What? No. I was told something was wrong. And she's
Yeah.
like, no one will notice the food is skimpy. And it's like, oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, because he knows. George
Yeah.
knows. Yeah. And that's about the time that the bunkers walk in, and the folks try to redirect them to, oh, you're looking for the Elks Lodge. No, we're here to see Lionel and Ginny. And Archie goes, do I look like an elk? He has no idea what they're talking about.
No.
So then I just had a bunch of notes, and I can't remember all the specifics, so you guys might have to help me with where it went after this. But Archie basically walks around being a racist idiot for the rest of the scene, going to talk to George.
Yeah, so it was let me show you, like, let me because Louise shows up, and they're like, let me introduce you around. He's like, oh, I don't know. He's like, let's get a drink. There it is. I want to meet the bartender.
Yes. Yep. I want to meet the bartender. So yeah, he goes over there and he wants the expensive stuff. And then he makes this comment to George, which again, Archie's naivety, not malicious. It's
No,
more
he
just
just doesn't know.
he just it's I don't know what I would call it, an
His lived
indefensible comment,
experience.
but
No,
yeah.
no. His lived experience is all he has.
Yes.
He
It's
has
all he's got
not
to
looked
go on.
outside of that.
Yeah. And he's trying to make small talk. He says, hey, it's kind of weird. You know, he's on that side and you're on this side.
Because the bartender says, yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir. That's
Yeah.
right. He says, hey, he's saying yes, sir, to you. And I love George's rebuttal, which it does, as long as the money's green, it doesn't matter if you're black. Something along those lines. That was so good. Because it's just like, what are we even doing here? This is crazy. But George is no fan of Archie.
Right before that, too, like Archie talking to George about a formal invitation you sent by your wife. That was very white of you.
Very white of you.
Okay.
Yes. And then we get another Elks Club joke with the parents of Jenny walk in. We don't know that yet. Archie walks over and there's a white guy, another white guy in the party. He says, oh, I'm a guest. And he said, are you looking for the Elks Club? It's down the hall. He says, no. I'm here. I'm a guest too. Oh, okay. You're a guest too. Jenny goes and hugs her mom. This is kind of keeping them separate. So we just kind of are able, given a beat, to put some pieces together. Jenny hugs her mom, who is black. And then when Archie is able to put the pieces together first, right? Because he meets them first as a couple.
So there's a great line though, because when he's talking to the dad and he's like, you know, the dad asks, you know, who he is, and he's like, oh, I'm their white friend.
Yes. Oh, that was great.
Friend is such a strong word for what Archie is to them. But Archie's face when he finds out, like, the wife, Jenny's mom, is black and her dad is white, his face is just everything. And there's a childlike joy he's about to have when he gets to show George what is going on. Because he knows that as much as they don't like each other, they don't like the idea of mixed races worse. So he's like, this is going to be wild.
Plus,
so he
for
goes
once,
over.
You know, Archie's not, like, he knows, like, Archie's always the unreasonable one.
Yes.
Right? Like, you know, and it's like, he knows that what's about to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And for once, he gets to be like, oh, look at this.
And he throws out this line when George gets to meet them, and George looks mad. Like, where Archie will look befuddled, George looks angry. And George's face, and then Archie says, it's a kick in the head, ain't it? Like, he's just egging him on. Like, look at that. Look what you have in your family now. And at this point, they split because clearly George is not a fan of this other family. This family's not a fan of the way they've treated them with the reaction they had, and they both go different ways. Archie wants to go to either of them and isn't invited to either one. So he says a line, which I find myself saying whenever I'm lost at a party and don't know what to do.
What the hell? I'll eat something.
That's it. That's what you get. So then we get the families are kind of off in their corners now. We've got, you know, Jenny's parents over there kind of discussing being treated unfairly. And you got George trying to tell Lionel he's lost his mind. And Lionel throws out a line I really love. I caught this joke too because it really tickled me when George tells him a particular thing. I think it's all in this audio.
Son, think. What about your children? What they gonna be?
Well, boys and girls, I hope.
I love that so much because it just says
it
says everything.
Yeah. By the way, Mike Evans did go on to be Lionel in the Jeffersons. He basically, that was the only other acting stuff he really did.
Really?
But he created Good Times. That was his show.
Wow. Okay.
So
good for him. I'm glad to hear that. Because that dude, he's talented. I loved his timing, everything. He's so good. And then we get to a fairly risque discussion in the show, where George is yelling across the room, like, if we give these people 30 more seconds, he's going to call her the N-bomb because he sees them over there seemingly fussing. They're not fussing. She's offended that they got offended, and he's trying to calm her down, but it's not an argument. But the way it's perceived from George's corner is an argument.
Don't make a scene. Like, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Don't make a scene.
Yeah.
We've been through way worse than this.
Yeah, and
It'll
she's
be
like,
fine.
we handled it when we were put through worse than this. We dealt with it, you know? And that was wild to me because I did not expect an N-bomb in a show, particularly today, streaming on Freebie of all places. Like,
Yeah.
we do, and this is what I think we wanted to do when we kind of made this show, is kind of look at old TV through that modern lens and see, like, does it hold up? Could we watch it now? And I think this is one of those shows in particular that's like, does it resonate still? And can we watch it without being like, oh crap, they threw out a word that they shouldn't use, we should turn it off? You know what I mean? Like that
Right.
automatic gut punch we have of hearing something we know is really wrong. It's kind of like throwing out the R word, you know, nowadays. I'm like, ooh, they shouldn't have done that. You know, I'm like, that's offensive. But it's like, in this context, somehow, when the story they're trying to tell and the behaviors they're trying to put across and the person that used the language, it all kind of works together to complement the story in a way that makes sense.
It wasn't Archie.
Yeah, it wasn't Archie.
Right.
Which Archie refers, did you hear that? I haven't said that word in 3 years.
Which is great because they moved in 4 years ago. We learned earlier.
Yeah.
So it took a whole year before he got there.
But Archie's growing. He's
right.
getting better.
Yeah. He learned because he ended up being, you know, friends, whether it's loose, real, whatever. He loves Lionel to death. He learned that wasn't okay, and he clearly didn't. He stopped, you know, after he's like, I didn't even say that. That was him. George dropped it, you know. But I think it's kind of interesting that it's the way back then you could use it, because I mean, it was common back then to have that kind of stuff thrown around, and it showed the level of absurdity, I think, is what we see when we watch them losing it over this. This show is framed in such a way that everyone's looking at it, particularly Edith and Lionel and the whole, everyone that's not Archie or George. It's like, what's the deal? Like, relax. Right. It's okay. Yeah. And they carried this into the Jeffersons. The actors who played Jenny's mom and dad were different. But they carried the same thing, and it was a constant deal with them. I remember when Lionel was going to have a kid in the Jeffersons, and George was freaking out because he read somewhere that the DNA of white people could travel down a mixed race couple and he could have a white grandbaby, and he was losing it. It was a really good episode. Fantastic stuff. But Archie and George are kind of eating this thing up in different directions. But to diffuse the thing, Jenny's dad goes over, says, I'm going to handle this. Right about time Mike and Gloria get there with records, they can play some music. And Lionel's like, we got to calm this down because it's World War III. And that's when the dad goes over and asks Wheezy to dance. And she accepts. And it's like, there you go. He killed her with kindness, or killed the situation by leaning into it.
Well, and it's really good because George was like, I'm standing right here. And she goes, he asked me first.
Yeah. Yeah, really lets him have it.
So good.
It is. And then Archie says, you see what, that mixed marriages leads to mixed dancing, which I loved. And Edith gets introduced to Jenny's mom, and Edith drops a fantastic line. I didn't catch it, or clip it. But she said, I ain't one of the relatives. I'm just a good friend. she's just the sweetest person.
So cute.
She's so adorable. And George and Archie meet at the bar. They have their scotches, and they do what maybe we should end the show with eventually, is here's to yesterday when things made sense. I like that a lot. And then we get the final scene of the show where they're like, if everybody gets mixed and they all start raising, everybody will eventually be one color. And I think it was Mike said, well, what would be so wrong? Edith says, well, what would be so wrong with that? And Archie says, how the hell are we going to tear each other apart? You know, we're all the same color. It was great. And that closes out that episode of All in the Family. I loved it. I watched it twice, you know, like you do when you're going to be driving the bus on this show. And it was absolutely fantastic both times. It did make me want to go back and watch some more of it, you know, here and there. I could see throwing that kind of thing on if I'm in the afternoon, I'm spinning the wheel and going, what's 30 minutes that I can watch while I'm eating lunch, and just picking an episode. We'll go in
Maybe with
reverse.
headphones, just in case.
Oh yeah, just in case. You're gonna be riding on the bus watching this episode, and all of a sudden you get that flying out of your cell phone. Because people don't get it. I mean, they won't get it. They don't know what you're watching. They just heard you.
No.
Yeah, they just heard ugly language coming out of your phone. So Amy, All in the Family. What did you think?
I thought it was great. I laughed so much. It was really wonderful.
That's great. All right, Travis, how about you? Where'd you land?
It was fantastic. And you used the word absurdity, and that's what makes this work. It's taking Norman Lear had such a good ability to take things and turn the absurdity up on them, but also make you think about it at the same time.
Yeah.
Like he was the king of doing that. And so, yeah, this show was great. I can totally see this being something to just throw on and have to watch, because Archie is a lovable buffoon, but he's lovable first.
Right.
He has to be that, or the show doesn't work. And that's the thing. Everybody in the show, you like them all, despite the ridiculous things they're saying.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely loved it.
To me, that's society, man. Like, if I can love somebody for being who they are for a minute, then I can overlook a lot that they do that I'm just like, why you do that all the time, you know? But like, I love you, but you're a mess. And
Yeah,
I think
and on top of that, so much of television that we watch owes to All in the Family.
Oh,
All in the
yeah.
Family did it first. Like, we don't have Family Guy without All in the Family.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
Oh, yeah.
but The Simpsons as well. There's so
Yeah.
many shows that were born out of what this was. So I absolutely adored it.
Yeah, they pushed the limits when they needed to be pushed. Audie, how about you?
Oh, yeah. This was great. It was so much fun. So hilarious. So well written. Yeah. I could definitely watch more.
Sweet. Well, that is great. And if you are a listener and you watched All in the Family, did we get any feedback in any of the socials? Did anybody check? I checked the email earlier.
I did not see any.
Okay, cool. No feed. Yeah, I got nothing in the email, but
No.
I did get an email, and I'll bring this up before we get to the rest of the stuff. That Bo, I put the link in the notes after you reminded me for akewillow.com/book. And Bo, thank you for joining in the march to 750. We got to get there.
Yes.
Got to get there, and you are a contributor, and we appreciate it greatly. And if you out there are looking for a great book to pre-order to help Amy and JF push this thing over the finish line, you want to go to akewillow.com/book and order 3 books. Just do it. You'll make that money back. Just put 3 and pay for it and calm down. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. Give your mom one and give a library one and read one yourself. It's a great Christmas gift. Get on it.
There you go.
But yeah, I think it's easy. It's a simple decision. But that was All in the Family. We're going to be continuing more sitcoms with Amy. You're going to be taking us somewhere next week. Am I right?
I am. I'm going to be taking you to the pillar of TGIF. We're going to watch Full House.
Oh my goodness.
I kind of couldn't believe we hadn't gotten there.
Yeah.
I looked at
That's
the I was
wild.
like, surely not. I looked at the list and I was like, no, we haven't. We are specifically going to watch season 3, episode 20, Honey, I Broke the House.
Oh,
They're
man.
available on Hulu and Max.
Perfect.
Nice.
Full House. I am shocked. That was my introduction in many ways to primetime television on a Friday. Yeah. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm excited just to see if Uncle Jesse had a mullet or not in that season. That's what I want to know. But yeah, we'll get to that next week. That's going to be great. In the meantime, you can be emailing us over there at gosh, I can't remember it.
Try again.
I have done so much with emails. All right. Those were the Days Show at gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Those Days Show. All of our socials are in the show notes. They're in the YouTube links. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can follow us on the socials. I need 100 followers on Threads or I can't get analytics, and that's driving me crazy. So you know what? Follow me. I'm driving this bus. That's at Steve H and H over there on the Threads. Follow me. I need 100. Tell your friends. But that's been it for those were days. Did I miss anything? I can't remember how to end this show. It's been too long. We all good? Everybody's good?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, perfect. Well, great. Well, everybody, thank you to our listeners. Couldn't have done it without Travis, Audie, and Amy. And I'll just end it by saying, here's to yesterday. We'll see you next time.
Good work.